power is that any insect that gets within 30 feet of you is vaporized. One day on your regular walk to work, a man steps in your field and is turned to dust in the middle of the street. People start fleeing in a panic, except for a few standing about 30 feet away staring at you hatefully. I was born an exterminator. My father was born an exterminator, and is before that. It's a family business, one reaching back as far as the family tree in the attic can remember. Of course, exterminators are common, but none have reached the same variety of power as we have, with the same grade of distance and control. It's a trade secret, for only my family knows how to access this particular strain that once a year, the mists roll down from the California mountains and into a small valley just north of our town, carrying with them a specific poison that evaporates off the flower petals along the cliffs. A typically mild insecticide, one extremely effective when vaporized. No bugs survive that night, and if a child is born then, just as the mists reach their heights and the sound of buzzing their lows, then the power passes on to them. Our variety lives an easy life. The rich pay high salaries to keep us on their properties, eliminating any pests from their grounds, and I'd been in the workforce for 6 years when Mr. Arachne employed me, offering me a 200% raise higher than any competitor, though he had two stipulations. First, that I travel an hour outside town to reach his home, and second, that I never leave the premises without permission. But 200% was low for someone like Arachne with his own powers, that of sensing potential future paths down the web of time. He could certainly afford it. Stockbrokers would pay a fortune for those like him despite its legality. It was standard for them to want our presence, for that was what eliminated the pests. As I lounged in a recliner by his poolside, my eyes taking in the beautiful scenery of his Napa Valley home, I knew that no mosquito would venture within 500 feet of my presence. No living mosquito, anyways. It was rare one would make it inside 100 feet before dropping from the sky, and the toughest only survived to 300 feet before their crash landing. It made transportation for me a problem. Anywhere I traveled, I required an environmental clearance, and could only reach there by helicopter lest I wreak havoc on the ecosystems I passed through. But for Arachne, the arrangement was perfect. He owned a vineyard, and I kept the vines clean of any sort of pest, except those he might desire. That was one of the perks of my exterminator variety, that with enough study and focus, we could make exceptions to our exterminations. Something that no other exterminators could control. Dieta, Mr. Arachne said to me, 2 weeks into my stay, as I read a book inside his sunroom, one gifted to me by a library for simply browsing their shelves once a month to clear away their silverfish. In my contract, Arachne stated that I would not be used for the same purposes as normal servants, meaning I could relax and read while on duty. My powers were all that mattered, and similar to how an accountant would not be expected to sweep the floors of his business, I was not expected anything beyond that particular passive ability. Dieta, I need you to ensure that you are on premises for the gala this Saturday. There are several important guests to be in attendance, and I wouldn't want them to miss your presence. Of course, I said with a smile. As exterminators, we were accustomed to formal events, and I had come to enjoy them. My family was so famed that we'd even become a talking point over cocktails, and I'd rubbed elbows with people of surprisingly high status. Already, my thoughts turned to which dress I'd be selecting, and the earrings I would pair to match. For my contract, you can expect me there. Wonderful, wonderful, said Arachne with a smile, and I do request, no exceptions on any pests for this gala. I don't want your powers being called into question. I shan't have them think we're second rate. Rest assured, sir, I answered, turning the page. If I can kill it, I will, and I did. The guests arrived by limousine, and were met with glasses of wine straight from the cellar. Arachne's home was far enough away from the city that several guests needed the alcohol to eliminate their miffed expressions, itself an exterminator of negative emotions. I watched from my upstairs bedroom of his estate as the cars continued to pour forwards, and noticed that it was always the same drivers. Arachne had a parking lot a mile off-site, where his own chauffeurs picked up the attendees to ride the rest of the distance in style. And as I watched, I saw the driver stop halfway to the house on occasion, then take a side path down towards a shed on the edge of the property, depositing what looked like long baggage before continuing their routes. I frowned, squinting. It was difficult for me to tell, but several of those bags looked too long and awkward to be luggage. They looked more like snowboarding bags, and I frowned, wondering where their owners might be, since those cars returned without occupants. But whatever it was, as an exterminator it likely was none of my business. I was here to keep the pests away, and I surely would. Welcome, Arachne said later that evening after the guests arrived, as we gathered before a wide dinner spread that seemed to be set for too many, each of us with a glass of champagne, and know as you dine tonight, that you are among friends, only friends, as we discuss the betterment of this world. Rest assured, if there were any imposters among us, they have been removed, and there were plenty. I'd like to recognize a few of you, from Marcia Anley, with your $3 billion contribution to the fund, and Mikhail, your specialization in discovering youths with incredible powers to better our cause has not gone unnoticed. Cheers, and be merry tonight, so we may build a better world tomorrow. Glasses rang together, and I sensed the room relax with his words, some unknown tension immediately alleviating. And staring around, I noticed several people smiling to me, raising their glasses in a cheers. People I had seen on the news, whose faces were as famous as most cereal brands. People that were now gathered together for some cause, one I knew little about. People whose bodies looked all too similar in size and shape to the luggage in the shed.